We have actually two ways to supply water to the trailer. We have a holding tank, a freshwater tank, and a pump. Now what we have on board here, we have a monitor panel that basically monitors the amount of both fresh water or potable water as well as your black and gray, which we'll get to in a second. So let's just first of all talk about the ways to get water into the trailer. We have this freshwater holding tank, which is probably 30 some odd US gallons. We would actually have to fill that tank with a hose. It's just a simple garden hose, not, it's just 1.5 inches. We take the cap off, we put water in there, and water burbles back, pees all over our shoes. Wet shoes means, I guess, we're full. That gauge, however, this one here will actually tell us empty, 1/3, 2/3 full. If all the lights are lit up, that basically means that the tank is full. In that case, and we would get to our campsite after filling it, the times that you would use this, let's say you go to a state or provincial park, okay, for an example. They do not have a full service hookup where they have water right at the site. You would actually have to go to their fill station, put water in the tank, fill it when you get to your campsite. Once it's full, okay, we verify that. Again, wet shoes and your gauge tells us that it's full. Turn the water pump on. The water pump is actually housed in up front here, as you can hear. Now that pump, it actually does exactly what you just heard. There's enough water currently in that tank. It's a pressure pump, or what we call a demand pump. It supplies water on demand. As a result, the pump's not running because I am not demanding water. If you were to flush the toilet, open the sink taps, have your outside shower going, it would continue to run until the pressure, you shut the taps off and it would pressurize and stop again. That's the idea with the pump. So on that note, it's not a very intelligent product. From the standpoint, it doesn't know the difference between a leak and you wanting water. So the idea is that if you're going to be using the tank and the pump, should you need to, when you leave the trailer for extended periods of time, shut the pump off. Because Murphy's Law says what? Murphy's Law says you're always going to develop those stupid leaks when you're not there to be able to turn the pump off. Okay, so always, you're walking out the door, you're going to be gone for the day, turn the pump off. Just like us going on vacation at home, that we turn the water off in the house, you're going to do the same thing here. Okay, if you're out and about the campsite, that's not a problem, just leave it on. You don't want to be an inconvenience in that capacity. The tank should be sanitized every 3 months or so. You want to take about 1/2 cup of bleach, Javex, Clorox, bleach, pool chlorine, I don't care. Take the cap off, put that through a funnel into the tank where you would fill it. Once it's full, you can then let it set for a while. Run some through your tap, so you're sanitizing your lines as well, but not through your toilet. I'll tell you why when we get to that point. So we've sanitized. There's going to be a drain valve in the bottom of the tank. We drain that tank off, and then once it's drained, we're ready to go. Flush it through with some fresh water again as well, and then basically it's sanitized. I would suggest now, probably at the end of the season, Thanksgiving-wise, if you're putting it away, and the beginning of next season, and then midway through the summer and at the end again. That way, keep the tank fresh. Most people do not drink the water from the tanks as it is, but again, we're cooking, we're cleaning, we're showering, we're stuff, so I still recommend it. That's the first way to get water to the trailer. The second way is through what we call the city water. When we go to a site that's a full service hookup, we typically have a water tap right at the campsite. So on that note, what we do is we basically hook a hose, a potable hose, which is typically vinyl, to the supply tap, bring it to the trailer. There's going to be a separate connection. It's going to say city water on the side of the trailer. That brings water in from the tap to the trailer at their pressure. So it bypasses the tank and pump. No need to turn the pump on, okay? Does not fill the tank. So it just comes into the trailer, supplies exactly the same equipment on board the trailer that the tank and the pump do, except that basically it's just coming in at their pressure. Now, one of the problems that we do have with city waters, we do have extremely high pressure. As our family experienced in Buffalo, we ended up we were down on a trip, hook on the water hose, and depending on where you are in relation to their pumping station, if you're at the very beginning, you may experience very high pressure. One end blew off of our water hose. I put pipe clamps on it, and the other end blew off the water hose. We put, and then I should have known better and had that water pressure regulator on the supply tap. So what happens, you put the water pressure regulator, it's $18, $20, right? You put it on the supply tap. It protects the hose because it limits it to between 40 and 50 PSI. We check all of our trailers to 60 pounds. So you should be fine. So it protects your hose as well as the guts of the trailer. Because the last thing we want is a small drip to develop. Because if we get hype, we can blow fittings apart. It's the worst case scenario, but actually even probably worse than that is actually development of a small leak. Because with city water, if we do develop a small leak, it may not be observable. We may not find it until it's way too late. Underneath of our kitchen sink, it'll always be at a connection as well. Or So you may find it because you've got your tea towels and your pots and pans and stuff underneath of that. But if something that's developed, say, underneath of the shower, behind the tap set, you may not find it. So it goes on all season long. It freezes over winter, goes on all next season. And next season, when you're going to sit down on the toilet or jump into your shower, you feel the spongy floor. That's not good. Yeah. So how do we find those small leaks if they do develop? That's where our tank and our pump come in. If we are going to places that we are using our tank and the pump, again, on your travels, I would expect you probably to be, then I would listen for the pump. If the pump starts to cycle and you're not asking for water, there is an issue. Now, it could very well be that the tap is dripping, or even on your water heater. You have a pressure relief valve on your water heater. Sometimes I've seen scale and line build up on the rubber seal and they leak by, or it could just be faulty. That's not a big deal, but the big deal is possibly that leak on a connection somewhere. They generally don't leak in the middle of a pipe unless somebody's put a screw or a staple through it. So it's very rare that happens, right? So it's always a connection. So if you are using your tank and your pump system, listen for that pump. What will happen is you'll hear brrr, 15 minutes later, or approximately whatever it is, brrr, and no, I'm not asking for water. It should not be the case. So, listen for that tank and the pump. In that case, then we can actually go and identify that there's potentially a leak somewhere, okay? Those are the two ways to get water. Now, similar to the tank and the pump, when you're actually leaving the trailer for an extended period of time, shut the tap off. Yeah. Again, Murphy's Law really likes that one because it's an unlimited water supply. So the idea is that either system, make sure that the pump or the tap are off if you're gone for extended periods of time. Okay, those are the two ways to get water into the trailer. Once they come into the trailer, they go into holding tanks called effluent tanks. We have black and we have gray. So if I push on here, we see that basically the gray water is currently empty and the black water is currently empty. And again, if they were full, those lights would light up telling us that they are full. Let's talk about the two different tanks. Gray water is dirty water from the kitchen sink, bathroom shower. That's gray water. The only issue that we ever have with gray water is potentially food debris and grease through the kitchen sink. Yeah. Again, these little indicators of resistance, they measure resistance, and as a result, if I get stuff hung up on them, they can actually give me a false reading. Or in fact, with food debris, I have a holding tank and I have a discharge pipe approximately 2 inches in diameter, and I have a blade valve that goes through rubber seals. To discharge that, I pull that handle which allows the effluent to pass that gate valve. If I push that closed and I jam carrot or potato peelings or something into that, it can leak by all the time. Mind you, it's not black toilet water, but it's dirty, smelly kitchen water, right? So you don't want to do that. So please minimize or just eliminate any food debris through that into that gray water tank. Our bigger problem, we can actually probably just shift down, get out of the, be a little bit more comfortable. So we have to talk about the toilet as well.